Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Snowpiercer Season 1, Episode 1 Thoughts video. Just finished watching the series premiere of Snowpiercer, and I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts on the episode. So, Snowpiercer takes place in a dystopian world where the whole world is in an ice age, and everybody has to live, and the last remnants of humanity have to live on a train called Snowpiercer, and it's all about class divide and civil injustice and all these fun stuff. And so, this is based off of, I believe, just the movie, which was, out a few years ago with Chris Evans as the lead in that. And so, this one takes place a little bit before. So, the movie took place 17 years after they launched Snowpiercer in a sense, and from when the Ice Age started. And this show takes place 7 years after, so a little bit before, 10 years before the Snowpiercer movie takes place. I believe it's still the same universe. But yeah, so they're on this train, and it's about this class divide between these haves and have-nots. The haves being the people who bought tickets, or passengers who bought tickets to be on this train, this kind of last-ditch effort for humanity to survive the Ice Age. And then the have-nots, who are called the tailies in this, which I really like because they're at the tail end of the train, and they are people who kind of stormed the train as it was departing and were able to get on board. And so there's this class divide between these two, and so we are introduced to Leighton, who is on the side of the tailies at the end, who's trying to organize this revolution. You kind of see he's kind of the leader, kind of not. It's one of those things, situations where, I don't want to say he's a reluctant hero, because he's actually really on board to be the hero, but he is a little bit more, what it is he's reluctant to act right away. He's a little bit more long term and planning it out, whereas his fellow tailies are a little bit more like, we're starving, man, we're eating rats, we need to go get out of train one. There's 1,000 other cars in here in this train, and we got one. And so I really was immediately hooked on this idea. Get all these trainees or tailies, not trainees, tailies at the end of the train, who are all just want a better life, want just kind of the same things that everybody else on the train wants. And so you get this tension and this build up. So Leighton's the character who we follow, or the main character who we're following, the POV character for the tailies, and then we're also following a little bit of who's running the train, which at first seems just like a lady named Melody, who's part of hospitality, but you also have this feeling there's more going on with her, and it's because, spoiler alert for the episode, people, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this episode. So she ends up being the one who's running the whole thing, the whole train. The Mr. Wilford, as it's referred to, Wilford Industries is the company that built this train in this world. So it's all that fun stuff. So it's really interesting to have these two characters who we're kind of following, and then how they get connected in this episode is there's a murder, which I really enjoyed as the premise for setting this up. This bridging the gap between these two worlds of the haves and have-nots, the tailies and the passengers, I guess. I can't remember exactly if they referred to them as something other than just passengers of Snowpiercer. But yeah, so there's a murder amongst the the haves amongst the amongst the passengers, and apparently the only detective, the only homicide detective on the whole train is the main character, Leighton, who used to be a homicide detective before the freeze went down. And so this is a fun little premise as a way to bring them into the world. It reminded me immediately of Altered Carbon, because you have that same kind of premise almost with the beginning of Altered Carbon, where you have this, in that sense, it's a criminal who they bring in to help solve, well, not a criminal, actually, this man who has a particular set of skills. He's an enclave. He's not a criminal at all. He's seen as a criminal, I should say. But he's an enclave who has skills, and he's brought back to investigate a murder of rich people. And it's like, oh. And then you watch Snowpiercer. I'm watching the Snowpiercer episode, and I'm like, oh, that's how they're going to bring Leighton into the rich people part of the train. Is he's the only cop, he's the only detective. And I was like, oh, it's a fun little connection. I don't know if that's intentional, but it is a fun little way to set up a sci-fi series in a sense, especially one that's maybe based on another property or based in a world that already exists. So I just kind of enjoyed that little connection. I don't know if it was intentionally done or not, but I thought it was kind of fun little direction. That's the tie we get in. We're coming in through a detective investigating a murder again, and so I really enjoyed that kind of. I like that as a premise. I'm noticing lately it's the same kind of similar premise to what I'm blanking on the name, the Amazon one with fairies. I just totally blanked on the name of that show. Yeah. Anyways, that's not important. The important thing is I'm talking about Snowpiercer, so this first episode I thought was really great, kind of setting up this world, setting up this series for us to be like, okay, I see what's happening. We got Leighton. He's trying to set up a revolution, but he also kind of gets to, even work on it a little bit more because he gets to access to the front cart and to the upper classes while investigating this murder for them and trying to bring balance for Mr. Wilford in it. So I really enjoyed the way that they set this up, this premise of him being like, no, I ain't gonna investigate your shit unless you can give us some stuff. And they're like, well, we don't have to give you anything. And he's like, yeah, well, I don't have to do it either. So I really like this kind of tension between them of, the Mr. Wilford and Melanie wanting to have, wanting him to solve this crime for them so they can maintain order, and him being like, well, I'm not going to do something if I'm, all my fellow tailies get left out in the cold. They're all, being, that they talk about at one point how they're being, what's the word? Not sanitized. Oh wow, sterilized. That's the word. That the women are being sterilized, and so the tailies aren't able to have more children, and so he's fighting for rights for them, more space on the car, just pretty much just basic ass rights for people. And so I really enjoyed this as a kind of setup, as this premise to look at it, to kind of spend this season both investigating this murder and then kind of building this kind of give and take between the two of him trying to get as much information as he can to kind of help the revolution for the tailies, while Mr. Wilford and the Wilford Industries people, all the people in the upper classes, are trying to, just figure out their shit without like giving away too much, and just trying to, just trying to solve this murder. So I'm really, really kind of hooked on this show right away. I'm very interested to see. I found it really fascinating checking out the different carts and seeing how they're kind of set up. They have this fascinating kind of I do love this thing about sci-fi shows sometimes, which especially when they have one of these limited settings, meaning it's a train with 1,001 cars. So there's a limited number of possibilities, a limited amount of space you can work with in it. So I do find it fascinating. Sometimes you'll see a room and you're like, is that big enough? Is that not big enough? Is that too big? Because they even have a train under the train, train under the train. So like at one point we see the Leighton gets taken down underneath like the main cart level, and there's this like little swing carrier kind of train thing, just carries them people back and forth along the bottom of the train, which is a smart idea. If you have a train that's 1,001 carts long, you can't just walk from one end to the other easily. So it would make sense that they'd have some kind of buggy, or I don't even know what to call it, because it does just seem like a train, a cart system, kind of a dumbwaiter type system, whatever you want to refer to it. They're just able to get down and back and forth. So it's crazy. I'm interested to see more about this train. I am curious what the logistics exactly are and how they exactly play out. Some of the rooms, like I said, don't seem 100% realistic. That's very high ceilings you guys have, considering you have a basement as well. So it's just really interesting to kind of explore these little things. Those are little nitpicky things that don't make me don't take away from the show for me, but just I find interesting to kind of investigate, being like, that cart doesn't look like the same size as the other one, but okay. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this first episode, and I'm very curious to keep diving into this one. This is a weekly series on Netflix here in Canada, because it's actually a series that's week to week on TNT in Canada and probably a few other countries outside the US. We got the rights to see it on Netflix, or Netflix bought the rights to show it on Netflix. So I'm going to be checking out week to week and making videos for each episode. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with those if you're curious about more of my thoughts about each of the episodes. I will be doing the second episode right after this, so I'll link that at the end of this video. But thanks again for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and have a good one.